We got 36 votes in the Senate, which I have to point out is a veto-proof margin.
This week in Pennsylvania, Senate Republicans say, hey, let's give the state's surplus back to taxpayers. The governor and Democrats have big plans to spend it. Philly State Rep Kevin Boyle breaks his silence and tells me Pennsylvania's a banana republic for how he was treated during his primary election. And drivers hold the phone. New law says if you pick up a device, you could get pulled over. Hello and welcome to This Week in Pennsylvania. I'm Dennis Owens. Happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there, and a heartfelt thanks for all you do for all of us. Well, if the state budget is like a big tennis match, Governor Shapiro lobbed his priorities during his budget address in February. Lots of big ticket items on his wish list. $1.1 billion more for K through 12 public education, money for higher ed, mass transit, and lots more. And with $14 billion in reserves, the governor said several times that day, we have the money to make big investments. But this week, Senate Republicans fired a forehand smash right back at Shapiro, and Democrats saying, yeah, there's money, but why don't we cut the personal income tax rate from 3.07 to 2.8 and put about $3 billion back in taxpayer pockets?
We have a rainy day fund. We have a fund balance. We've been saying consistently that those are one-time dollars. We have to be careful how to use them. But we believe if the belief is we have too much money in the bank account, then let's take it and bring it back to the people that put it there in the first place. I think the point of all of this is to drive our agenda to the House, to the governor, make it clear on where we stand, and then we'll negotiate where we need to negotiate and come to a consensus.
So Republicans want to roll back the personal income tax in PA that was increased, was pushed through 21 years ago by then Governor Ed Rendell. It jumped from 2.8 to 3.07%. But don't count on the extra money in your paycheck. It's not likely to happen. The governor and House Democrats want to invest, their word, in programs that they insist have been neglected for too long and see the surplus as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to cure what's ailing PA.
We should stay the course of making the targeted investments that we know don't just bring us a dollar back, but brings us multiple dollars back into the state's coffers. We believe in investing in children. We believe in investing in seniors. We believe in investing in business and getting business here to make Pennsylvania the place that people want to live, work, and raise their families.
So the budget tennis match underway. As you can see, Matt Bradford and Josh Shapiro there, Joe Pittman, Kim Ward on this side. Senate Republicans are fighting to give money back. Now, while arguing it won't happen and wouldn't work, even Democrats begrudgingly concede calling for a tax cut is a shrewd political move, and several Senate Democrats even voted for it.
Nobody wants to pay more taxes, including myself. One time I had to raise the gas tax. I went home, my wife gave me heck. Okay.
You could actually cut income taxes. You'd be a hero.
We would be a hero for a little bit, because then the bill becomes due. And that's the scary part.
We'll keep you posted on that. Now, from one Philly Democrat to another, State Representative Kevin Boyle's whereabouts still unknown as of this taping, but he is communicating for the first time with me about his primary loss. A week before the election, you remember, the local DA said Boyle violated a PFA and was a wanted man. The night before the election, the DA said it was all an honest mistake. There was no PFA to violate. But the damage was done, the election was lost, and the 7-term incumbent is boiling mad. Tempers also flared among House leaders. The 2024 Democratic primary in the 172nd was despicable on the part of law enforcement, texted State Rep Kevin Boyle. He sent along documents confirming a prior conviction had been expunged a year ago. Should have been easily accessible, but the Philly DA, a week before the election, said Boyle was wanted by police. Then, the night before the election, called that a mistake. Boyle writes, I wouldn't have lost if rules had been followed and law enforcement had not played politics with a phony investigation about a non-existent PFA, which had already been expunged from my record. House Republicans agree with the aggrieved Democrat.
And then, just a big whoops. Nothing to see here, everybody.
Republicans want the Attorney General to investigate Philly DA Larry Krasner.
The Rules Committee shall come to order.
House Democratic leaders have said nothing about Boyle's bungled arrest warrant, but they are pushing a resolution creating a leadership-led committee to possibly expel members deemed unfit to serve. Republicans call that dangerous and unconstitutional.
Is a stacked, secret, one-sided panel able to compel members to potentially testify against themselves outside of the public eye.
Leader Bradford called it a compassionate response to a difficult situation and shut down further debate.
We have already listened to you ad nauseum about this. Let's move.
Actually, you haven't, Mr. Leader. You haven't.
But Leader's frustration pales in comparison to Boyle's. America is not a banana republic, he writes. Election and politics can never be the deciding factor behind why investigations are started by law enforcement. It's despicable that any law enforcement official would spread rumor about me being investigated or about to be arrested to advance a political goal. Asked for reaction to that, Krasner's office said no comment. Boyle was defeated in the primary by Sean Doherty, who had the backing of House Democratic leaders. He is also the son of Supreme Court Justice Kevin Doherty. Speaking of elections, it appears rejections of mail-in ballots were down in last month's primary. According to the Department of State, there was a 13% decrease in the number of ballots submitted without dates compared to last year. Officials say a redesign of the envelope helped reduce that error rate. Drivers hold the phone, or more accurately, don't, or you could soon get pulled over. Bills on the governor's desk that will prohibit the use of cell phones while driving and make it a primary offense, so police can pull you over specifically for that. Phones can be used with hands-free technology like Bluetooth. A Scranton mother who lost her son to a distracted driver spent 12 years pushing for the legislation to prevent possible profiling. The bill would require police to keep records of who they're pulling over and why, and that data will be stored and analyzed. And the drug xylazine will soon be classified as a Schedule III narcotic and a controlled substance known as tranq. It's being blamed for a growing number of overdose deaths. Violators of the soon-to-be law could spend up to 5 years in prison. Xylazine will remain legal for its intended use by veterinarians. Session days ahead of the budget are crazy busy at the Capitol. Tuesday, this week alone, saw 17 press conferences, most of which get ignored because we can't possibly cover all those events. But if you fire off a rocket, we'll be there.
3, 2, 1.
This is the first Aerospace Day at the Capitol, spotlighting the tens of thousands of good-paying aviation and aerospace jobs in the Commonwealth. Also highlighting York County Spring Grove High School, which has one of the top rocketry programs in the country. They set off that rocket, calling it one of their smaller ones. A student told me it did land in a tree, but she said, no problem. We have a 50-foot pole for that. All right, trivia. The longest-serving acting governor in PA history. I will not only tell you who it is, we'll meet him after the break.
This PA Chamber Minute is paid for by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry.
How can your small business save money? It's easy. Join the PA Chamber. From shipping and utilities to HR and compliance, joining the PA Chamber can help your business save thousands of dollars every year. As a PA Chamber member, you'll gain access to exclusive benefits like comprehensive insurance, data-driven energy procurement, trusted HR data, and discounted shipping solutions. With nearly 10,000 members statewide, the PA Chamber has the scale to offer you big business benefits at a small business price. Our network of preferred providers can help you unlock exclusive discounts and specialty services that will save you money and add to your bottom line today. Find out more by visiting pachamber.org.
Let me discharge the duties by affixing my signature as Lieutenant Governor and Acting Governor to the budget document.
And welcome back to This Week in Pennsylvania. That was Lieutenant Governor / Acting Governor Mark Singel in 1993. After Governor Casey had a heart-liver transplant, you became acting governor for some 6 months, which was the longest ever in Pennsylvania history. Mark Singel, thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Most important thing you did in those 6 months as acting governor?
Well, there are a number of things. We finished up the budget that was kind of left in abeyance when the governor, was taken in for his surgeries. We also did the first real workers' compensation reform. People don't realize that, but that was done, after a year and a half of negotiations, and I was able to kind of push that over the edge. And then the telecommunications.
How young
bill.
you look there.
I know. Who is that guy? Who is that guy? And that was the day, as a matter of fact, that the transfer of power occurred, and it was jarring. I remember that distinctly.
After that, you ran unsuccessfully for governor, lost to a guy by the name of Tom Ridge. You became a lobbyist, an analyst. You've written 3 books, one on that 1993 year. You wrote a book on Thaddeus Stevens, and now you have written Seeking Truth in America. It's a compilation, really, of articles, right? So
right.
What is the purpose of it? What are you trying to get across?
Well, the folks at Penn Live asked me to start doing a regular column, so I got into the habit of doing a weekly op-ed piece. And I found myself, beginning in 2015, just kind of commenting on the situation that we were in and on the nuances of the politics of the day. And I mean, that's just as the rise of Trump was occurring, and that was pre the pandemic and a whole host of things that were chaotic in nature. And what I found as I opined on a weekly basis was that I was pretty shocked by things that were going on. After my lengthy career in government, you would think I would have seen it all. But it was very chaotic and very tumultuous, and I wanted to speak just as an average American saying, this is not normal, and you don't have to accept this, and you ought to at least seek truth from your elected officials. And that was the theme that emerged.
It is said of war, truth is the first casualty. Well, in this partisan war that we seem to be in, objective truths, if Democrats or Republicans don't want to hear it, they just ignore it, reject it, or say it's wrong somehow, or fake news. How bad is the problem, and how do we get past it?
The problem is as bad as it has ever been, and it is injurious to the system. If you are unwilling to say to the other guy, you might have a point there, or let's talk about that, and you need to get tax relief, maybe we can go there and do some of that if you give us our infrastructure package. It's all about really making logical deals on behalf of your constituents, but nobody wants to do that. They entrench themselves into their corners. They don't want to go anywhere near a compromise, and that's a mistake.
As we saw in those pictures of you at a younger age, you were in the trenches, but you've also been around Harrisburg. How bad is it now in Harrisburg, for instance, this partisanship issue?
I honestly do think it's very bad because I hearken back to those days where you would object and you would say, my distinguished colleague is mistaken. Not the guy's a dirty dog liar, those kind of things.
And maybe meet
are
for a steak
unacceptable.
and a cocktail afterwards.
And then absolutely, that happened many times. But we would get together afterwards and socialize and mend fences.
You have truth in your book title. The truth is Governor Bob Casey was staunchly pro-life. You're pro-choice. How did that impact your relationship? And he didn't give you a full endorsement when you were running for governor. And there was some resentment there, wasn't there?
Yeah, and it was always very frustrating to me because the positions weren't that dissimilar. I just had a problem with, having the federal government impose its will on such a dramatically personal issue. So I always told him that it is very possible to be pro-life, but to be respectful of women who are making that difficult choice. And we never quite connected on that.
What's your relationship with Senator Bob Casey Jr., his son, of course, who has evolved? I did a little research just a couple of years ago. He was being called anti-abortion Democrat. That's not the case anymore. He does support a woman's right to choose.
That is correct.
What do you think his dad would think of his position?
I think he would understand it. I really do, because Bob Casey, the senator, has made that evolutionary step that says, look, America is about freedom. America is about guaranteeing that people have the right to privacy, the right to make their own decisions on their own behalf. There's no way that we can dictate to 52% of the population what they are going to do on the issue of abortion. Having said that, you can still maintain the posture that you are pro-life and you and your family are not going to condone abortion of any sort.
You have that choice.
You have that choice, but you can't impose that on other people.
Thank you. We're going to have to leave it there for a moment. Be right back. Much more with Mark Singel when we come right back. Welcome back to This Week in Pennsylvania. Pleased to be joined by former Lieutenant Governor Mark Singel. We have our analyst, Christopher Nicholas of the Eagle Consulting Group, and Danielle Gross of Clearpoint Communications. Danielle, you get the first question, but don't devolve this into Johnstown talk, please, as the two Johnstown natives.
Not too much of that, yeah.
Thanks for joining us today. You were talking a little bit about the divisiveness we're seeing in politics lately, and one issue where we're seeing a lot of controversy and dramatic talk coming down from the national level and impacting us on a local level is about elections. So what do you think that we can do as Pennsylvanians to reassure folks that our elections are run correctly by the folks in their own backyard here?
Well, I actually think that Pennsylvania has taken a number of great steps, including having as Department of Commonwealth Al Schmidt, who has a national reputation for securing fair and free elections. And there have been things put in place to make things even better than they were. And the occasion of election fraud was so minuscule that it really wasn't an issue at all, except it was blown way out of proportion by a certain candidate who lost a presidential election and couldn't bear that thought. But Pennsylvania's on the right track, and we have always had fair and free elections, and I think we're heading in that direction again.
You were not referring to Millard Fillmore, right?
I wasn't.
Christopher Nicholas, you have a question?
You love Millard there,
I do. I like the name.
Mark, thanks for being with us. I was remarking to you before the show how we're in the middle of, I think, week 3 or 4 of the first former president being on trial for a criminal offense, and no one's talking about it. Why do you think no one's talking about this, thing that's never happened before?
Well, we talked about this, but I'm not sure I agree with you, because I'm personally riveted and watching the nuances of the testimony and what the prosecutors are doing and what the defense attorneys are doing and so on. And what I can see developing as a pattern that is really presenting an airtight case. This is the first president ever in our history to face criminal charges. And it looks to me like they are making a persuasive case that a jury is going to be hard pressed to deny. So I personally am very interested to see what the outcome is. But to your point, I don't know, maybe people are so cynical that they just assume that everybody's a scoundrel. I don't. I think that people are better than this. I think we're entitled to better leadership, and there's no way I'm going to be voting for a convicted felon. I'll tell you that right now.
You won't, but polls are showing us, especially in the battleground states, that a lot of people will, and the polls are showing Donald Trump would win. What's your reaction to that?
I'm astounded by it. I really don't understand it because, again, I'm kind of an institutionalist. I was brought up in the, Danielle will tell you, the tough streets of Cambria County, and politics meant something. I mean, one thing that you would never do is present yourself as a candidate if you had so many skeletons in your closet that you were going to embarrass yourself and your family and your political organization and so on. So you had to be wiped pretty clean before you even endeavored into that profession.
You're kind of a Democratic Party elder statesman. Who's the next great hope Democratic Party-wise nationwide? But I want you to focus on Josh Shapiro because you've heard the same rumors I have. He's running for president at some point down the line.
Yeah, well, let me just start there. Josh Shapiro is the real deal. And I've known him since he was a member of the House of Representatives. He's been running for president since he was 12 years old, and he's good at it, right? Yeah. He really doesn't miss a trick, and he presents himself well, and he handles the press so beautifully and that kind of thing. I think he needs a little bit more of the effort on a bipartisan basis with people in the legislature to get more of his objectives done. And if he does that, he's going to be a star.
15 seconds, I'll give you the final word. Since you have a book, you have a lot of words in that, but I'll give you the final word here.
Here's the final word. We need to be kinder to each other. That's all there is to it. Respect each other and do well by each other. You would think we've learned that golden rule in kindergarten. But we need to get back to that.
All right. Mark Singel, pride of Cambria County. Thanks so much for being with us, former Lieutenant Governor. Stay with us. Much more This Week in Pennsylvania when we come right back. And and welcome back to this Mother's Day edition. Happy Mother's Day to you, by the way. I quickly want to show the graphic Lenny Mikowski, our outstanding graphic artist, showed on the budget tennis match that's underway. I just love looking at that. It's a lot of fun, but it really was a forehand smash. Republicans threw back saying, hey, why don't we just cut the income tax instead of spending money on all these things? What do you make?
Like a lot of other Republicans, when this first, we have too much money came out, I was like, hey, let's just give it back. That's the easiest thing to do. Then we can figure out what to spend it on rather than the 253 folks at the Capitol. So it's a winning issue for our side.
Well, it's a political stunt, and because the tax is a flat tax, it benefits the wealthiest Pennsylvanians more than it benefits the people who actually need that money in their pockets. It also undermines the constant reiteration of the Senate Republicans for years that we have a fiscal cliff, we have a fiscal cliff. And then they're talking about pushing forward a piece of legislation that would erode that fiscal cliff even further.
I hope you guys continue to talk that yammer-yammering for the rest of this budget season and have, if you notice, the governor didn't dismiss it. He didn't junk it like you did. He just said, oh, we'll take it into the flow. So
it's not my job to make nice.
No, of course not.
It's his job.
I know. So he didn't reject it out of hand, so it may be in play.
Well, Joe Pittman made a point of he got a veto-proof vote in the Senate. A number of Democrats voted for it, too.
Yeah, what was it, 8,
yeah.
9, 10? So, yeah, that would pass. Never underestimate the power of giving people back their own money, Dennis.
Quickly, takeaway on Kevin Boyle. Obviously lost his election, frustrated about that. What do you make of that whole thing that went down with the PFA that wasn't a PFA? Oops, a mistake the day before the election.
It sounds like a mess, and I don't know how else to
Look, the
elaborate on
Democratic Party, circled the wagons around the Supreme Court Justice's son, usual Democratic Party in Philadelphia shenanigans. Do you really think Larry Krasner is that bad? He doesn't know when there's supposedly an arrest warrant for somebody
I'm sure
and there
that's
isn't?
not the first time an arrest warrant has been issued for someone in Philadelphia. That
a sitting state representative who then, the day after that came out, they did a TV ad against him on it for 8 days. The day after it had been removed, the ad was still there. So
he was in trouble well before that whole thing happened.
The fix was in, folks.
Well, it took a staffer of ours about 3 minutes to find the expungement on the web. So, and we're not in law enforcement.
But Larry Krasner's DA department down in Philly, it was too much for them, Dennis.
Maybe there's some questions that he has. Let me just say to all the moms out there again, thank you. Happy Mother's Day to you. Hope you have a wonderful day.
Happy Mother's Day to my mom in Bucks County.
In Bucks County. Hope to see you next week on This Week.